Hey folks, how you doing? So last week, a few days ago, I just put an update because I've been working on this particular video for a little while now, and I figured today's the day. Um, Being a practitioner, sometimes there are some things that you cannot, as much as you want to ignore it and you want to avoid it and just, you know, go on doing what your usual thing. It is justice for your ancestors to look into it and to develop a perspective, especially when it comes to the ceremonies that take place, the rituals that take place. It will really shed a lot of light and give a better understanding of what is going on when you participate in these particular events and ceremonies. So let's go. I think I've spoken long enough. So now I remember I had a conversation with my grandmother. Um, may she rest in peace, my grandmother. Was born in 1925, and the wisdom that she gave and shared with me, I will forever cherish. And so one day we were having a random conversation, and for real, she's just like, when I'm talking about slavery and all this other stuff, it's just like, what, child? I don't know nothing about what you're talking about. But one day she said to me, she said that the Pope visited Haiti and he kissed the ground. And her words were, "Et le pas planté entre Haïti, li te bote, depuis là, li te bote, te maudit." So what she said was, if I had to translate it, is the Pope visited Haiti once and he kissed the ground. And from the moment that he kissed the ground was cursed. Now,
Arrivée du président Duvalier et de son épouse et de sa suite.
and looking up different things, trying to find um, footage and videos. And I watched it when he did come into Haiti in 1983.
Cette rencontre est importante. Jean-Claude Duvalier et son épouse serrent la main du Saint-Père. Derrière ce geste se cachent beaucoup de choses. D'un côté, dans ce pays où l'opposition déclarée est menée par un protestant, Silvio Claude, la venue d'un pape catholique renforce la position de Duvalier. Mais depuis quelques années, alerté par la petite Église, le Vatican réagit. Notamment lorsque, fin 80, le gouvernement haïtien décide la déportation et l'arrestation de tous les opposants au régime. Réaction encore en décembre dernier, lorsqu'un journaliste militant chrétien est arrêté. Il s'appelle Gérard Duclerville. Lorsqu'il est relâché grâce à l'intervention de l'Église, il a les deux tympans crevés. Et ainsi, petit à petit, est née l'idée d'une contestation qui s'organise autour du respect de l'Évangile et des droits de l'homme. Or, Jean-Claude Duvalier, qui vient d'échapper à un attentat, n'a pas besoin d'une église qui serait au nombre de ses ennemis. C'est sans doute pour cela que dans son discours d'accueil...
So the Pope um, visited in 1983, and in 1986, 3 years later, Michelle Benet and her husband, Jean-Claude Duvalier, who was the heir, fled Haiti. I want to include the clips here. So I gotta get my little YouTube scholar shirt. Um, 3 years after, and I found several videos, and some of the things that they were saying, I was like, wait, it's interesting to hear people speak of Haiti in that way.
Thousands of Haitians made a pilgrimage today to Gonaïves, a city north of Port-au-Prince where 3 students were shot to death last November. They were remembered as martyrs at a mass celebrating the fall of Duvalier, which was also hastened by pressure from the Catholic Church. The church and the army are now the 2 strongest institutions in Haiti. So far, both support the new government. The government let 3 special flights land today at the Port-au-Prince airport, and Air France.
First and foremost, whenever the media speaks about Haiti, one of the first things that they say is, Haiti is the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. Another thing that they say is the corruption that occurs in Haiti. And historically, if we want to look at the positive side, they say that it is the first Black republic, right, to gain its independence in 1804. Now, let us define what a curse is, right? So, a curse, as defined in a Random House Dictionary. Okay, put it up right here. Random House Unabridged Dictionary of the English Language, unabridged edition. This is the oldest that I could find. It defines a curse as this, and I looked in several dictionaries, even looked it up in Google. So the first Random House defines a curse as a noun. First, a noun, the expression of a wish that misfortune, evil, doom, etc. befall another. 2, a formula or charm intended to cause such misfortune to another. 3, the act of reciting such a formula. 4, an ecclesiastical or anathema. And I have not heard of this word before, so I needed to look it up in the dictionary once again. Okay, now, anathema. Okay, a formal ecclesiastical curse involving excommunication. 2, any imprecation of divine punishment. So now let's stop there. That is the Random House definition. Now, the Merriam and what is this? Webster's New World Dictionary and Thesaurus. okay, it defines a curse as a calling on God or the gods to bring evil on someone, on some person or thing. Google defines a curse as a solemn utterance intended to invoke a supernatural power to inflict harm or punishment on someone or something. Okay. So then I have to ask myself, first of all, who is the Pope and why such a grand reception? And whenever he enters whatever country, visits whatever nation, he's always meets with the head of state. And, you know, we've been told, I know that I've heard that there's a separation between church and state, but still the curiosity still peaks, right? Who is the Pope? So, right? And the Pope, okay, is the leader, obviously, of the Catholic Church worldwide, okay? Uh, the headquarters of the Pope is in the Vatican, which houses the Pope, of course, and the Roman Curia. It's made up of the Pope, the cardinals, bishops, the Curia, seminarian students, and visiting clergy. Church, okay, and the history of Rome itself and how it became, I guess you could say a superpower because Rome is the smallest country in the world, right? And yet, the Vatican, okay, is second to McDonald's as far as owning real estate. So wherever you see a church, Catholic church, really belongs to Rome, and the Roman Curia, they are the judicial and executive organizations of the Papal See, comprising the government of the Catholic Church. Okay. Dum Diversae. Dum Diversae is a papal bull issued by Nicholas V authorizing the conquering of pagans into perpetual servitude. Okay. In 1456, and this is only what, 40 years before 1492, when we all know Columbus sailed the ocean blue and so-called discovered the new world, but we'll get back to that. Okay. In 1456, Pope Calixtus III reiterated the bull with inter cetera, okay? And we know that is when you see that word ter, okay, is really speaking about land, inter cetera, in 1456. And in 1493, after Columbus discovered Okay, Pope Alexander the Sixth extended the cetera in the Americas. And there's even in the Supreme Court, there is a ruling. I don't recall the particular case itself, but there is a ruling under this so-called doctrine of discovery. Let's take it back to Haiti a little bit, right? King Ferdinand and Queen Isabel took on the charge of the papal bull, okay? And they then sponsored the expedition of Christopher Columbus to the New World. Now, what was the climate at this particular time? There were wars that were taking place from the first century. Well, I'll touch on, but it's so involved. I'm still unraveling that part. Before what they considered to be the first century, there were these we've heard of the Mediterranean and the Phoenicians, right? The Phoenicians were their greatest, I guess, they're renowned for the alphabet and just being shipbuilders and having created and sailing along these different trade routes. So there were people who were traveling by ship throughout the world. We can't say it's exclusive to the Mediterranean itself. But if you were to look at it, just, if you look at just where the Americas is located and Spain and North Africa, what they consider to be the Mediterranean with Syria, present day Syria, Lebanon, and Libya, Morocco, okay, all exist along this coastline of the Mediterranean. These people have been traveling far and wide way before this expedition. As a practitioner, sou konen, nou konen komon pa, nou pa tande parol de ekspedisyon, ou konen ki sa li exactement. Nou moun expedi ou bagay sou, ça veut dire they just putting it off on you. That's they casting something upon you, right? And it could either lead to injury, it leads to chaos, it could lead to insanity, it could lead to disease, it could lead to several things. So before this expedition has taken place, these people were traveling all over the place. In the first century, however, in 711, we have heard of the Umayyad conquest going into Spain from Morocco. So these people, they give them several names. You hear of Saracens and all these different types of people, Turkish, and but rarely do you hear about the Moors. However, if you look at a map, you can see how close Spain is to Morocco. And in 711, they entered into Spain, and that unravels a whole other history. So during this time, there were the Crusades, and of course, the climate during the time of Pope Alexander. issuing this papal bull, this papal charge or decree was the time of the Inquisition. The Inquisition, the Roman Curia, they were ahead or in charge of going into different territories and finding out who the pagans were, or those that they felt did not abide by the decrees or the doctrines issued by the church. And so that gave them judicial authority. Because once you go into a church and you become a member, most of the time you're going into, and one of the things that you learn is confessing, right? Confessing your sins. And they take into account, who the people are in a particular area. And then it is on to the devotee to give tithe to the church. So I think I went I went a little bit further than I wanted to go. But let's just talk about the doctrine of discovery for a moment and just really focus on, what that is, and what the Inquisition was, because this crown felt as though they were pursuing their property, and they had the God-given right in order to conduct their affairs in this manner. So when they went into this new world, and they so-called discovered these people who were already living on the land, they claimed them as their own, and that is what the Intercetera is itself. Now, as simplistic as this may seem, right? I have to ask myself, right? The indigenous name of Haiti is Haiti. So where did the H come from? Where did the H come from? And we want to say, oh, how simple is that? But what is that a hex? How is it that you just put an H before the actual name of the nation, Haiti? Still to this day, it's Haiti, but when you're speaking in English or whatever, they say it's Haiti. Where did Haiti come from? And why is it pronounced as such? Haiti? It may seem simple, but really the question still lies. When spoken, the name is Haiti, but when written, it is Haiti. And so these little subtleties may be, again, dismissed and ignored, but they do exist, and they do play a role in the psyche itself. And so this is my particular approach and understanding. It's so, there's so much to the story. The name itself, right? Haiti, ou bien of what we know as the island itself, which consists of Haiti and the Dominican Republic. The island itself is called Hispaniola, right? So again, it is an island that was claimed by the Hispanics, right? The Spanish crown, again, the Inquisition. the decree that was bestowed upon them in order to claim this particular land as their own. And then again, part of the Roman Curia, the Dominican order, they were the ones to conduct these particular trials, okay? And they put their stamp on it. The Dominican, what we now know as the Dominican Republic and Haiti, okay, that divide. So